everyone. Hey everyone, thanks for joining our webinar. We'll just wait for some time for everyone to join in. And thanks for joining from wherever you are tuning in. We really appreciate your time and energy and giving out your precious time attending these webinars that we put together for everyone. So, really appreciate it. And we have a pretty basic webinar going on today. It's called Getting Started to SingleStore, and my name is Yukti Devedi. I will be your moderator today. So one of my main jobs here at SingleStore is to plan and organize these weekly AI webinars. We organize 2 or maybe 3 webinars per week. We demonstrate data and different AI use cases, different tools and technologies. So it's pretty interesting content. I also post about our upcoming webinars here and now. So if any of these topics are interesting to you, feel free to connect with me to stay in the loop. I'll also like to hear your feedback or ideas on topics that you would like to see in the future sessions. So feel free to connect and drop a message to me or Akmal on LinkedIn. So speaking of future sessions, we have got amazing sessions that are coming up on August 16th. As you can see on your screens, we've got how to make full stack MongoDB and JSON apps 100x faster. You can scan the QR code that is present on your screen. It will directly take you to the landing page and you can register. If you are interested in that topic, I'll also be putting everything in the chat. So just stay tuned for that. Just give me some time. On August 19th, it's a pretty popular topic. Like internally, I can see it's getting a lot of registrations. So LLMs in financial services, personalized portfolio recommendation engine. Pretty useful, I guess, because this topic has been very famous lately. So, and on August 27th, we have a webinar with our partner, Amazon Achieve Real-Time AI Analytics on Amazon DynamoDB with SingleStore. So if you like to see a comparison test kind of a thing, so feel free to tune in. And if uh, any of these topics are interesting to you, RSVP, you're welcome to participate in the discussion throughout the session using the Zoom Q&A button, which is present at the bottom of your console. We have an internal mission statement to try to answer 100% of the audience questions, even if that means following up with people afterwards via email. Just make sure that you've logged into Zoom with your name and email address. Because we will not be answering any anonymous questions. We'll also love you all to have a dynamic experience during this webinar. So feel free to try out SingleStore notebooks. Anyone who tries it today will be entered for a chance to win either branded new AirPods Pro or for a chance to win either Meta's new Ray-Ban LN smart glasses or AirPods Pro. It's absolutely your choice. Simply click the link that's present on your screen, or I'll be putting everything in the chat and log in. You may know that SingleStore has had a free trial offer for many years, but we have in the past few weeks we have also announced a new free share tier, which we'll talk about a little bit later today. So moving on, allow me to introduce our amazing speakers. So we have the real database expert, Jamal. I'm very happy to have you here. And I think the mic is now yours. Thank you very much for joining.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Yukti. Your sound was breaking up a little bit there. You might just want to check your internet connection. And please also monitor mine, okay? So if you find it, I'm not sounding good, we can try and sort that out. All right, well, great. Well, thank you very much, all of you, for attending today. I feel I've been away for a while. I get asked to do these webinars on a regular basis. I think I haven't done one for a few weeks anyway. But next week we have 2. So Yukti's already mentioned one of them, which was the recommendation engine FinTech. I think it's Monday, if I remember correctly, or anyway, early next week. And then it wasn't shown on the earlier slide there, but we've got a workshop. I think it's the day after. We're actually doing something similar. Netflix problem, okay? How to recommend movies, okay, using vectors. And that's a hands-on workshop, okay? So I've got all the material ready. So if that's something you're interested in, and you can spare 2 hours, okay? So it's going to be a bit longer than our normal 1-hour webinars. So that one is very much a chance for you to follow along and try out the code and the notebooks for yourself, okay? And then obviously you can take it away and customize it as you wish. All right, well, for today, as you can see, the agenda is fairly short. A lot of my time is spent on the introduction. Strangely enough, we've got quite a lot of slides there, okay? And then we'll talk a little bit about SingleStore and then demo of sorts, okay? So I've got a couple of things I can show you in the environment, and then I'll show you how you could load some data in very simply and straightforwardly using the free shared tier with Yuxi mentioned. Now, she'll share those links in the chat, okay? So please monitor those. And so one of those will go to the trial. Okay, it will look something like this, as you can see. Right, try SingleStore free, and you can sign up very quickly. So either use Google or Microsoft, or do it the old-fashioned way: first name, last name, email address. Okay, and then just click the continue button. You should receive an email, and I think it just basically confirms you're a human. And what they've done now is, if you are signing up for the first time, automatically, as part of the sign up process, once you get into the environment, you have a free tier running for you. I believe that's the case, okay? I'll walk you through how you could provision that yourself, but you're only allowed one of these at any one time at the moment, okay? That may change in the future. We don't know. All right, meantime, let's go back to the slides a little bit, okay? So, like I said, a few slides to show you, and then we'll walk around the environment, and I'll show you some of the features and functionality of the portal. Okay, so this is a short slide about who is SingleStore. So we are a company that has been around since 2011, originally founded as MemSQL. So the focus was very much on in-memory OLTP processing, and it stayed like that for a while. And then some years later, added support for column store and OLAP. Okay, there's this kind of universal storage now that can handle both types of processing, both OLAP and OLTP. So fairly unique in the industry. There are not too many other people doing this kind of thing. I was pointed to a research paper just recently where someone else has been sort of looking at researching this area as well. But there's not many products that do both of these things in a single product. Okay, I mean, of course, you can augment what you already have with additional capabilities and additional technologies, but within a single product. Now, vector search, it's the hot topic of the day. Everybody's got vector search today. Note that SingleStore has had this capability since 2017. Okay, so a financial customer actually came to us, wanted that support, and that was added in. Now, over time, it's got better. Okay, so this is vectors and vector search as part of Gen AI applications and AI stuff. Generally, if this is something that you're interested in, we've covered it extensively over the past, couple of years now, I think, since ChatGPT came out. And earlier this year, a number of enhancements were added, a dedicated vector type, for example. And if you choose to attend that workshop that we have next week, the one I mentioned about recommender systems, we'll actually be using vectors and the vector type in anger. Other things, so by now we are at 2024, and so during this period of time, the company has over 100 million US dollars in annual recurring revenue and over 350 global customers. And if you look towards the bottom there in terms of our investors, okay, let me just show you that. So you can see here some very well-known global names. I think some of these companies actually started off as users of the technology, and they liked it so much they decided to invest in us as well. Okay, so that's a little bit of the history. Architecturally, it's great to show this high-level picture, and then we'll go into some of the other details very shortly as well. Okay, so universal storage, as I mentioned, the ability to do both OLAP and OLTP. We integrate very nicely with many external tools. This is not an exhaustive list, just some of the key ones that you might be working with, such as Kafka, for example. or Apache Spark, for example, or maybe you've got data in Hadoop, HDFS, S3 buckets, for example. Very easy to get that in at scale using this concept of pipelines. And a little bit later on, actually, we'll be looking at an example of this as well. Okay, so I'll show you that. So we do run on the three major cloud platforms, AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure. You can run us on-prem as well. And there's a hybrid model as well. So part of our infrastructure, architecture, however you want to do it, can be run in your environment, and part of it can be in the cloud. That's kind of interesting. And there is a Docker container as well. Though I think, seriously, the best way to get started is to sign up for the free tier. There's nothing to install locally. Everything's in the cloud. It's all web-based, very easy to get up and running extremely quickly. Other things, so at its heart, it is relational in nature. We do support geospatial, time series, full text search. Okay, the Lucene full text search engine that received a bump in one of the recent updates to the product. There's even a customer using it as key value as well. Interesting. JSON support we've had for quite some time, and that's got even better with the introduction of SingleStore Kai. Okay, so if you're a MongoDB user or a document database user, Couchbase, even Cosmos DB from Microsoft, then there is a very easy way to move across from that environment to SingleStore. Why would you do this? Because SingleStore is awesome for analytics, and published benchmarks show how competitive we are. Some cases up to 1,000 times faster than MongoDB for analytics problems. Okay. And of course, vectors, not forgetting that. So that has been there for some time. Applications, well, real-time decisions, AI apps, dynamic experiences, and then very easy to do ML. We've, again, covered that very extensively in lots of webinars. Ad hoc queries, very easy to do as well, built-in SQL editor. And if you want to build dashboards as well, very straightforward as well. So, for example, if you're working with Tableau, or similar technologies, very easy to connect to SingleStore. As I've mentioned many times in previous webinars, I often use Metabase, the free download, and then within a matter of minutes, just connected to SingleStore, getting data in, creating visualizations, pie charts, bar charts, and so on. Very easy to do. And if you're working with other technologies as well, such as Streamlit, for example, I've used that extensively in the past as well. Very nice to have a kind of visual front end. That's very easy to do too. Okay, so all in all, you can see that it is not just a database management system, but really provides you with a wide range of capabilities and tools for a wide range of problems. Okay, so real-time performance, unlimited scale, and simplicity. So these are kind of the areas that we really focus on: the performance, the speed, sub-second results, scale. Okay, so there is this separation of storage and compute. So it allows you to scale horizontally, scale out architecture, okay, and simplicity. It is very easy to get started. And with this built-in Jupyter environment now, I mean, you can be up and running in a matter of minutes. And I'll show you an example of that very shortly. Okay, so the key areas, transactions, as we mentioned, analytics as well, and the search capabilities we've talked about, all built in. Okay, and let's take a slight look at this. So we have this built-in notebooks and on-demand compute, and I'll show you that as well shortly. And you can see here, there's a wide range of technologies. Again, this is not exhaustive. Okay, just some examples. So I've used Kafka very extensively. Okay, but if you're working with Red Panda or actually Confluent itself, their platform is very easy to configure that. If you have data in MongoDB or MySQL, you can use this CDC feature that we have. So you can connect, and that can take a snapshot. And then as long as you keep that connection up, as new data arrives into these platforms, whether it's your MySQL database or MongoDB, it gets propagated to SingleStore as well. And again, why would you do this? Well, for the analytics, okay? So SingleStore's performance on analytics is simply awesome. And in case you're wondering, I mean, you can see the Postgres logo there. That is planned for the future. Okay. And then other sources, other database systems, other sources of data, you can use sort of ETL and other tools as well. I'll mention a few of the tools available very shortly. All right. So we've recently announced support for Iceberg, and you can actually run SingleStore within the Snowflake environment as well. Okay, so that was part of the launch not so long ago. LLMs, FMs, GPUs. So interesting, there's Bedrock here from Amazon. I was just recording a video for an on-demand event for that a little bit earlier today. But you can see some well-known names there: Hugging Face, Meta, OpenAI, and so on, Cohere, Anthropic. So very easy to use again. Okay, powering data and AI applications today. So here's the issue. Okay, so why would you choose SingleStore? Well, perhaps you start off with this requirement. Maybe there is a need within your environment. Maybe you're using something like MySQL, for example, and you want to batch ingest some data for your application. That might well be enough for your needs. Over time, let's say you need to do more. You have some operational requirements, for example. Okay. And then perhaps you need some JSON support. Okay. And MySQL does support JSON. Maybe you need a fast cache. Sometimes I've come across case studies and organizations using Redis, for example, as a fast cache in front of MySQL. Maybe you need to do some search, so something like Elastic, for example. And then perhaps handling some streaming data from Kafka. And then perhaps a data warehouse or a data lake or a lake house for analytics. And so you can see that there's quite a few requirements here. You're really, over time, your need for multiple products has increased. And so what SingleStore can do, I'm not forgetting machine learning there, so Spark. Okay, so what SingleStore can do is this effectively replace many, if not most of those technologies. So you have one product that can do all of those things. Okay, so here we can see the benefits of this, plus the multi-model, so both transactions and analytics. And the real benefit here, so from a developer perspective, it's good for you because it saves you time. You have only one product to learn, not half a dozen different ones. Plus, you avoid all the costs in terms of integrating multiple products together. From a business perspective, it's good for you because you reduce your total cost of ownership, improve your return on investment, and again, in terms of licensing and cost and overall, sort of projecting into the future in terms of your requirements, you're already future-proofed, okay? You've got something that can handle a wide range of capabilities if you need those. So you may not need all of SingleStore's capabilities today, but you have those available if you do require them. All right, so robust ecosystem of interoperability. Again, lots of technologies that we work really well with. These are just some examples. Probably you can recognize some of the logos here. And this is just meant to show you, the extent to which a lot of our customers and users, the sorts of technologies that they're working with. And this is just a small sample. All right, now, SingleStore Compute Service. So I mentioned a little bit of this previously. So we do have this Python notebook environment that's built in. We'll take a look at that very shortly. So you can run SQL and or Python code. We can support all of these Gen AI models as well. You can access them very easily. I mean, if you're working with Python, as you know, it's a breeze to be able to do that. But there are plans afoot using Olama, for example, that we can actually provide you with models directly within our environment. Okay, and that again saves you time and trouble, makes the task of building these Gen AI applications much easier for you. And other things as well. You can actually schedule notebooks as well as jobs. This has been published in webinars. So just some of the things. And other things, there is built-in GPU support as well now in the notebook environment. Again, I'll show you that, okay? So you can take a look at that, see how that works. So this I covered very briefly in terms of CDC support. As I said before, MongoDB and MySQL, these are available today. They work really well. I've presented several webinars of them about this technology, actually demoed them as well. And we have notebooks as well that contain some examples that you can use. So, fast ingest, easy migration. And again, having worked in industry a long time, I know sometimes it's a little bit concerning, especially if you use a new technology and you have something that you've been using for some time, but you reach a pain point where you feel that your existing technology is inadequate for your needs today and maybe for the future, but you're not quite ready to give it up. So sometimes it's nice to be able to have this ability to run systems in parallel, and then you can do that with SingleStore. Say, keep your investment in MySQL or MongoDB for the present time, have the chance to use this CDC technology to get data in, test out the capabilities of SingleStore in terms of the analytics, for example, which is awesome. And then over time, if you decide that, yes, this is the right fit and the right technology for you, you can shut down those pipelines, okay, and then directly feed your data into SingleStore if you wish to do so. Okay, so that provides you with some confidence and the ability to test it out for yourselves. Okay, so that's worth doing. Some of the other tools and integrations that we have. So if you've got something that we don't currently support, for example, with the CDC technology, well, we do integrate with some of these well-known names, Fivetran, Airbyte, for example, and there is tooling as well to migrate from some of these other legacy database systems. Okay, so again, this is not exhaustive. Okay, just some examples just to show you, and we do have partnership arrangements with some of these vendors as well. Okay, so how to get started with SingleStore. So if you've, as I mentioned earlier, you've gone through this process, it will, and you've signed in, you'll get to a page that will look something like this, hopefully. Okay, and we'll come back to this in a moment, and we'll give you a chance to explore this and take a look at some of the features and capabilities as well. But essentially, it's very simple. Okay, like I said, sign up. Super simple to do. A couple of minutes of your time, even less, maybe less than a minute. One thing I should add here is that in addition to the free tier, you do get $600 worth of credits for compute resources. And that's useful because you may find, for example, you outgrow the free tier. Okay. And by the way, there's other things coming along within the sort of free tier scope. Not quite free, okay? Pay a little bit of money, get some additional compute power, for example, and that could be very useful for you, particularly if you have something that you need beyond just what the capabilities of the free tier support. So there are some limitations, obviously, around the free tier, but if you need something more, but maybe not quite high end, then other options are in the pipeline as well. All right, so workspaces. Okay, so this is the ability to really partition your work, if you like, and you can allocate appropriate resources, and you can allocate appropriate databases, and you can give different sort of levels of permission as well, whether it's read, read only or read write, for example. And again, because there is this separation of storage and compute, essentially it gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of how you can configure things and how you choose to utilize the environment. This is very, very useful. Again, not widely available as far as database systems are concerned. And probably Snowflake is the best example of this, I would say, in terms of separation of storage and compute. But SingleStore does this within the database world. So database now, in case you're wondering, what's the architecture of SingleStore? Well, it's a scale out, as I mentioned before, shared nothing architecture. Okay, so you have this concept of aggregator nodes, okay, and then leaf nodes where the data is stored, and the actual sort of disks, whether that's SSDs. That seems to be the popular way to do this today. I think spinning disks are somewhat rare, though obviously you might consider them for longer term storage or cold storage in terms of cloud-based environments such as S3 buckets, for example. But that's really how you do it. Okay, there's a partitioning as well of data, and all this is managed for you. Okay, so the distribution is managed for you in a sort of clever way. And again, if parts of your network here go down, let's say you lose a particular, let me just try and see if I can get something here. I think this one, yeah, let's say, this bit goes down here. It will very, very cleverly load balance and give, you the ability to access the data. Oops, let me go away. That's it. Okay. I'll walk you through this as well in terms of the connectivity. Okay, so once you've created some compute resources, you get details of how you can access those resources from external tools. So very often, for example, I use a MySQL CLI client. Okay, that's on my Mac. Sometimes I like to just connect to something in the cloud, be able to run some queries, just look at some tables in a very simple way, and I can do that. And again, all the information is available from this environment. So you get the connectivity details. You can, if you look at this example, for example, you get the kind of long host string here, which happens to be AWS. You get the port number here, okay? And you can provide the password and so on. And what's the username here? In this case, it's admin, for example. All right. Notebooks based on Jupyter. Okay, very useful. Something that we introduced last year. It's, again, very, very popular. And interestingly, I think, and I'm not sure what the latest numbers are, but I think a lot of people actually run these as kind of batch jobs, if you like. They are scheduled jobs, notebooks, which is kind of unusual. I've always been used to using them in an interactive mode, simply because it's a nice way to develop your ideas and your code. It's very forgiving. Okay, you make a mistake, it's all right. You go back, take a look, fix the code, run the cell again. Hopefully that takes care of it. So it's great for kind of experimental use, especially for analytics, where you're doing sort of exploratory analytics, looking at data, trying to understand patterns and look for interesting things within that. So this is very, very useful indeed. And now this is built entirely into our environment. Okay, so let's take a look at some capabilities here. Let me keep an eye on the time. So that's not bad. It's about 1/2 the hour. All right, so here we go. So once you're in the portal, it will look, as I said before, something like this. And on the left-hand side, the first thing you need to do, as I said before really you can do anything, is you need to create some compute resources. And so the way to do it here is you go to this deployments, okay, in the left nav here. Let me just highlight that for you. Okay, and we select this. Now, in this particular case, I don't have anything running. I am connected to a couple of different accounts up here. Okay, so this is almost like my personal one. I think this was the first one I created just around the time I joined the company about 3 years ago, and it's still got credits today. But let me just click on this. As I said before, if you've signed up for a fresh account, you probably don't need to do this step. Already you'll have a free tier workspace created for you, but I'll click on this, okay? So here you can see that it gives me two choices here. I can choose the starter, or I can go for the standard. Okay, we'll look at the standard in just a moment, and I'll show you some of the configuration options there as well. But I can choose my workspace name. here, I'll just take the default, Starter Workspace 1. As you can see, currently the only choice of cloud provider is AWS. That may change in the future. And in terms of region as well, currently there's only one choice as well, as you can see. And again, that may change in the future. So we are looking at US East 1, North Virginia. And by default, you'll get a database as well. It's allocated a name here. You're welcome to change that. So I'll keep that. And the thing is, if you edit that name, and because it's a shared tier, if somebody else is using that name, it will tell you. The name is already in use. So you need to play well. So I'll just take the default. That's fine. And if you look down here, then all I need to do is say create starter workspace. There we go. And it's done. And if we take a look at the bottom, you can see there are my compute resources. Okay. And there is the database. And there are obviously some limitations around this. Okay. You are allowed to have one of these free shared tiers currently. And obviously, in terms of the size of the database, number of tables, and so on, again, there are some restrictions there, but it's great for small scale testing. And many of the notebooks that we have within this environment will work on this just fine. And so here, as I promised a couple of minutes ago, if we take a look here and see this thing there, it says connect. If I click on this, you can see it's got details here for, say, a CLI client, SQLID, application, BI tools, and so on. So let me just click on the CLI client. Okay, let's do that. And here, because this is new, it's asking me for a username. So again, I'll take the default there, and it's saying what sort of permissions do you want on this? Do you want it read only or read write? I'll keep read write, that's fine. And again, you can see it's assigned a password for me. All right, I could change that. And I can copy that onto the clipboard as well here. That's fine. And just say create user. And then the first thing here, it gives you that long connection string you can see, and it's got everything here as part of it. Because this is the first time it's actually showing the password here as well, right? Subsequently, if you come back to this, the password will be hidden. So it's a good idea to make a note of that. You can change it, of course, if you wish, that's fine. And for the free shared tier, a point of note is that because you have to play well, and it is a shared tier, if you want to connect from an external tool, such as a MySQL CLI client, for example, you do need this thing here, the certificate, okay? And you can download that, and literally it's just a little bit of an extra add-on to this MySQL command. Put that certificate in a safe place on your hard drive somewhere, and then just reference that as part of the connection. Other things here, you can see that SQL IDE. So again, it gives you the information you need to connectivity. So for example, the long host string, the port number, your username, the password, what's the database, and so on. So essentially, you get all the information you need in terms of connectivity. And again, you can see that multiple languages supported here. So it will give you the appropriate details in your language of choice. Hopefully, one of those will be suitable for you. And again, for BI tools, Tableau, for example, Looker, Power BI, and other tools. And Mongo. Okay, so if you'd like to use SingleStore Kai, this will give you the details of how to access that within this environment as well. Okay, so my colleague Spandana is doing a session on Friday on Mongo. Okay, so if you're interested and you want to know more about Kai, I would highly recommend, please attend that session. You'll learn a lot from her. She is the product manager for that and knows far more than I do. Okay, so we have some compute resources now. Now what we can do is, if you take a look at the left nav again, okay, Data Studio, this allows us to go in here. Now, as you can see, I've got a couple of notebooks here that I've been working on over time. So this was the one I was actually working on earlier today as part of a recording for Amazon, but ANN vector search, Atlas and Chi, CDC, JSON vector search, so on. One quick way that you can get started with notebooks is this thing here called Gallery. Okay, so if you click on this, what this will do is it will give you access to a whole load of notebooks here. Okay, these are all notebooks, and you can take a look at this filter by. So if there's some particular subject that you're interested in, let's take a look, say Mongo here, for example. Okay, if I click on this, it will narrow down the list, and you can see here there's an example here for Mongo Atlas and SingleStore Chi. Okay, all right, and there's I can remove that, for example. So lots of different examples there to have a look at. Even real-time recommendation engine. That's somewhat different to what we plan to do next week. So here's one, getting started with SingleStore data frames. All right, so if I click on this, and then all I need to do is just say, try it now. Okay, click this. And because I've already provisioned some compute resources, it will load the notebook for me. At the top here, you can see that my workspace, okay, starter workspace 1 and my database are already available here. And if I take a look at this, you can see that because I don't have anything else running, those are the only two choices I have. One on each side there, you can see. If you have additional resources that you've provisioned, they will appear in that list as well. But you do need these resources in order to do anything. So to run the code in this notebook, for example, I need the workspace. So again, you can see here, it's got Markdown. You have bits of Python code here. It checks whether you're using a shared tier, for example. I said the majority of these notebooks, I think they work fine without any need to change anything. And then sometimes you can see some embedded SQL code as well. Most of this seems to be Python here. So, and typically then at the end, I think there's a cleanup command as well, which will essentially just remove everything and return you back to a clean state. So that's a great way to get started, learn a little bit more, and then be able to utilize some of these notebooks that are available in this environment. Okay, now you might say, well, okay, what happens if I have some data that I want to use and I want to upload that into SingleStore and I want to work on that myself? Well, a couple of ways you could do it. So what I tend to do is if I have something on a Google Drive or GitHub, for example, I just provide, use the appropriate Python code to be able to access that directly, provide the URL, read that into a data frame locally. That's one way you could do it. Another possibility is if we go to deployments again here on the left nav. Okay, you can see that currently it's obviously selected this one, which is the starter workspace I created a few minutes ago. But you can see that there is something here called stage. Okay, preview. So let me select this. And stage provides a way to be able to upload some data into the portal. And I could create a folder if I wish. Okay, for now, I'll leave that. And then here you can see on the right-hand side, it says upload files. So let's try that. Okay, so I get a wizard and it's asking me, it says drag file here or browse. So let me browse since I'm using the entire screen, and let's go to the desktop. And then on the desktop, I know that I have a CSV file. Okay, this is the iris dataset. Okay, you can use anything you wish. Right? This is something that I use regularly simply because it's small enough to utilize. Okay, and then all I need to do is just say upload file. There we go. Okay, and it's successfully uploaded the file for me. There we can see it. Okay, the date and timestamp. That's tiny, 5 kilobytes. I believe, and I may stand corrected, but I think it's multiple gigabytes worth of data that can be uploaded. There is obviously a limit. but you could upload something substantially larger than this. Now, once you've got this here, you can obviously, what can you do with this? Well, one easy way that you can utilize this data very quickly is, again, if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see these three dots. Okay, so if we select this, one of these options is load to database. Okay, so if I select this, then it's asking me a little bit of information here, saying what workspace do you want? And I only have one currently. That's the starter workspace. And then in terms of the database, well, again, I've only got one choice here. And then what's the table that you want to call this? Well, Iris is fine. It's given me a kind of a default there. That's absolutely fine. And then all I need to do is click on this to say generate notebook. So let me do that. And so what this will do for me is it will create dynamically a notebook for me, and you can see it's already loaded that as well. So it's given me the information I need automatically based upon the database, okay, which you can see is selected there. And it's going to create a table for me. And it's looked at the structure of that CSV file, and it's decided, well, it's going to be a double, a double, a double, a double, and text. So I've got 4 columns which contain numeric data, and then I've got a text column for the actual species name, okay? So that's fine. Now, this is ready. I can actually start executing my code here. So I'm just going to position my cursor there, and I'll say Shift-Enter. And it's done. So it's created that table for me in that database. And then here is this kind of concept of pipeline. So what it's doing is, now this is going to be very fast, okay, when it actually runs, because remember, I've only got 150 rows, but potentially I could have much larger quantity of data. So this is a great way to get that data from that CSV file into the table itself. So far, all it's done is just created the table. So here, I'm just defining the pipeline. I'm saying create the pipeline, and I want to load this CSV file from stage. A little bit of throttling there in terms of the batch interval. And then automatically it's given me a whole bunch of options there as well, which it's selected based upon it thinks that this is the best way that it's going to read the data in. Okay, and then here's the structure of the CSV data. Okay, so it's provided all of that for me. And again, I can just hit Shift Return. Now, so far, what it's done is just define the pipeline. Hasn't actually done anything further. So I've got an empty table, and I've got a pipeline that I've defined, but no data so far. And so the next step here is to actually start that pipeline and to read that data into the table itself. There we go. Okay, so this is what this does. Okay, so let's do that. Let's run that. There we go. And then if you've got large quantities of data that you're reading in, for example, you can monitor the pipeline. Now, in this case, during the time that I hit that, and I've been talking for a couple of seconds, the load is complete already. But you might have larger quantities of data. And so here, what you can do is you can actually monitor the pipeline as well, see if there are any errors in there, any problems that might need investigation. And then finally, at the end here, we can take a look at the data. Now, it's automatically selected 100 as the number of rows. I think that's a bit too many. Let's just reduce that to, say, 20. Okay, otherwise it just fills the screen, and then just take a look at that. And there we go. So the data are already loaded in for me. Okay, so you can see it's created the column names there for me. Okay, automatically. And then the species and the data have all been loaded in for me. And now, although this is the end of this notebook, essentially it served its purpose. It has created the means for me to load that data into a table in a database that I've previously created, and I can now start working with this, from other notebooks. I could start creating other ways to be able to do this. There's other things that we can show you. So notice here, for example, in terms of compute, currently, can you see that it says small? So I didn't mention this in the slide deck. You can see that I can choose the notebook runtime. And this gives you a little bit of information in terms of the CPU, for example. I could choose medium here, okay, for a bit more sort of power, or I could go for a GPU here, okay? And then you need to confirm that, yes, you know what you're doing. Changing the runtime will terminate the current session, okay? So just be aware of that. So that, again, gives you the opportunity to use some GPU capabilities. So I'll cancel this for now, okay? So we'll just leave that for the moment. All right, so we've seen a couple of ways that we could get the data in, okay? So you can utilize existing techniques, okay? So CLI commands, for example, or you could use pipelines. You can read directly from external sources, into a data frame, Pandas data frame, for example, with its Google Drive, for example, or GitHub or somewhere else where you've got your data. So that's really a quick way to get going. Now, other things. So if we take a look at, let's have a look here. There's lots of other tools on the left nav here, okay, in terms of monitoring as well. So if you need help, so just keep an eye on the time. So I'm conscious of time, want to leave some time for questions. Get help, okay? You can chat with us, okay? There's over here, you can see there are some commands as well to help you in terms of understanding queries. So Visual Explain, the profiler, if you like. And you can upload the file or paste the JSON here, for example. There are monitoring capabilities, active queries, query history, for example, right? And it will monitor it. So these are anything that take 1,000 milliseconds or longer. Okay, they are traced. Active workload monitoring as well. Okay, so you can see currently I don't have very much running in this environment. And then things like historical monitoring as well. Other things are possible too. One other thing that's worth pointing out is that in the top here, you can see there is this kind of pull down. Okay, let me just select that for a moment. And can you see there is this section here that says licenses? So what this will do is this will give you, and forgive me if I don't click it, it will reveal the license, right? But you can have access to a free license that will allow you to install the full version of SingleStore in your own environment with 4 nodes. Okay, so that's the full product. You're only limited in the number of nodes that you can install, and that's 4. We do have some customers that do that. They run that on-prem, or they even do that within their own cloud environments. So that is something that you can utilize if it's of interest to you. And obviously, you could run the product on-prem as well, okay, through appropriate licensing too. But that's a great way to get started there. Okay, so I think I've shown you that sort of the key things that you need. So one more thing to show you, and then we'll wrap up. Okay, so if we go back to deployments, and I promised that I would show you the standard tier. So I'll select new deployment here, go back. And notice now that because I've got the starter already, this is now ghosted out. It won't let me create another one. The only option I have is the standard. And so with the standard, again, I can choose the group name. I'll just take the default for now. This gives me much more choice in terms of cloud provider, AWS, GCP, Microsoft Azure, for example. Again, I'll stick with AWS. And again, in terms of the region, you have significantly greater choice in terms of where you want to run this. So I suppose I could pick something that's a bit closer to me physically. Let's have a look. London, way down at the bottom there, which is Europe West 2. Let me pick that one. All right, so you can, there may be some options here. You can see it says employee only. That's auto terminate. And then deploy into availability zones. That could be helpful. Okay, and I'll just click next. So there's a few options that you can choose to configure this. Okay, and here you can see I've got some more editing if I wish in terms of workspace. And then by default, it will give me this size here, which is S00. What is S00? It's 2 virtual CPUs, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and this will burn through 0.28 credits per hour. And I can change this here through this edit button here. And so you can see that I can choose to configure the number of CPUs, the quantity of memory, and obviously the larger it is, the more credits it's going to burn through. And it will give you an estimate of the usage per month. You can see many of these are kind of ghosted out for the moment, but this really goes on to an enormous size. The largest one that I can currently see here is this thing down here, which is an S384. That is a whopping 3,072 virtual CPUs, 24 terabytes of memory, and that will burn through 432 credits per hour. And you're looking at burning through that many, 315,360 credits per month. Okay, but you can configure this. And if you need something a bit more substantial, this is the way to do it. Okay, so that's fine. I'll take that one. And then here you can see as well, I've got a little bit of flexibility in terms of enabling this Mongo API. So in this one, I'll keep it enabled. And just kind of auto suspend. There's a few other things here that we can do. There's some sample data sets that we have available as well. And then I just select create workspace. Now, this is not as instantaneous as the free tier, okay? Because if you think about it, it's actually doing a lot of work behind the scenes. It takes a little bit of time, a couple of minutes to provision this for you, because you are now saying that you want some dedicated resources just for you, rather than using the free shared tier. So it does take a couple of minutes, but we'll leave that and I'll come back to that later. All right, so just to wrap up then, summarize. So you've seen these in terms of the sign-up process. I've walked you through some of the options that you have, the ability to use the gallery for notebooks, okay? Provision yourself some compute resources, okay? So you can actually do something. And then a quick way that you can get data in, okay? You saw the CSV file example there. It'll actually generate the notebook for you, load that in for you as well. And we've seen some other capabilities in terms of if you want more dedicated resources. I've shown you where to get the license as well. If you want something for yourself to install, 4-node license is free of charge, and you can install that within your own environment. We also have this program called Go Live Acceleration, where SingleStore Professional Services can help. Okay, so if you're thinking about possibly moving, migrating, emigrating to SingleStore from your current environment, then we can work with you. Okay, we will ease that planning and execution and ensure that it's a smooth process for you. Various t-shirt sizes, small, medium, large, okay, 40 hours, 80 hours, 160 hours, depends on your needs. And we will put together a detailed migration plan and execute that with your consent and with your approval and with your help as well. Okay, so there are steps to this: an assessment phase, design and plan, migrate and validate, post-migration support, okay, and then cutover support as well. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, that you may SingleStore may be entirely new to you. Maybe you've never come across it before, and perhaps you may have some concerns, in terms of compatibility, for example, or is it going to meet your requirements? Will the performance be adequate for the kind of analytics you want to do, for example? Okay, all of these things are understandable. I mean, these are real-world concerns, and so we can work with you and help you in terms of that process to move across. Okay, and at that point, then I will stop and hand over to Yukti and see if there are any questions, anything else that we can cover. And today we do have about 5 minutes or so still to go. So Yukti, over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Akmal. So surprisingly, we do not have any questions today because
Okay, awesome.
yeah. So thanks everyone for attending, and we have a lot of amazing sessions that are coming up, and I have put the link to a workshop that is related to vectors in the chat. And if anyone's interested, it will be a hands-on session, and Akmal will be there as our speaker, so you've seen how good he is. So definitely, if that's interesting to you, please feel free to attend. And it's called build a recommendation system using single store vector search. And I hope to see you there. And obviously, quick notes before I announce today's raffle winner. On August 16th, we are showcasing how to make full stack MongoDB and JSON apps 100x faster. And on August 19th, again with Akmal as the speaker, LLMs in financial services, personalized portfolio recommendation engines. And if the topic is interesting to you, RSVP right now. And on August 27th, we are doing a partner webinar with Amazon, and it's called Achieve Near Real Time Analytics on Amazon DynamoDB with SingleStore. So uh, if any of these topics are interesting to you, RSVP right now, and I will see you all there. So the announcement that people have been waiting for, today's raffle winner goes to Rajesh Agadi. He's a customer engineer at Google. Congrats and thanks for joining, sir. And if that's not you, I will be announcing one more raffle winner by the end of the day, and that person will be notified via email. So do not give up. Just sign up using the link. There's still a chance. And if anyone who has tried out today's demo, they are automatically eligible to be entered to and to be considered for the raffle. And you can sign up at the link that's present on your screen, and it's also there in the chat. I want to thank Akmal for today's presentation and demo. Thanks everyone for joining. If there's a feedback that you have, feel free to send a message to me on LinkedIn. I would love to hear or incorporate any feedbacks that are coming from the community. And thanks everyone for joining in from wherever you are. I understand it's a bit late in the APAC time zone, and have a great rest of the day. Have a great rest of the night. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.